lucky to inherit him. You know, the players of Bryan Robson's calibre are very few, far between. I think that you judge it this way, that not only has he been important to Manchester United for the last decade, but he's been the axis in which England have gained any success at all in the last 10 years. And Bryan Robson is this thing about timing that, for instance, if two players got to head a ball.
When the names of football's greatest leaders are mentioned, certain figures immediately dominate the conversation. Players who didn't just influence matches but shaped eras, defined standards, and carried teams through moments where talent alone wasn't enough. Bryan Robson belongs firmly in that rare category. To understand his place in football history, it's not enough to look at statistics or trophies. His true impact is best understood through the voices of those who witnessed him up close, those who played with him, managed him, or grew up idolizing him. And few endorsements carry more weight than those of Sir Alex Ferguson and Paul Gascoigne, two men who, despite their vastly different personalities, agree on one thing without hesitation. Bryan Robson was something truly extraordinary. Robson, you've merged in an era when midfielders were expected to be specialists. Some tackled, some passed, some scored, and very few did, all three at an elite level. But from the moment he arrived at Manchester United, it was clear he didn't fit neatly into any category. He wasn't just a midfielder filling space between defense and attack. He was the engine, the enforcer, the creator, and the finisher, often all within the same phase of play. Opponents never quite knew where he would appear next, and teammates learned quickly that as long as Robson was on the pitch, they were never truly beaten. Sir Alex Ferguson saw this almost immediately, over a managerial career that lasted 26 years at Manchester United. Ferguson worked with some of the most dominant captains football has ever known. Leaders like Roy Keane, Steve Bruce, Peter Schmeichel, and Gary Neville all played crucial roles in United's success. Yet when Ferguson was asked to name the best captain he ever had, the answer never changed. Bryan Robson stood above them. That alone speaks volumes, especially coming from a manager who valued authority, discipline, and influence above everything else. Ferguson often described Robson as three players in one, a phrase that perfectly captures the chaos he caused for opposing teams. He could win the ball like a defensive midfielder, drive forward like a box-to-box engine, and finish chances like a natural striker. It wasn't just versatility for the sake of it. Every action had intent. Every run was timed. Every tackle meant something. Robson didn't play within the rhythm of a match, he dictated it. If you're enjoying these deep-dive football stories that go beyond highlights and trophies, now's a good moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep these long-form football histories alive and reaching the people who truly appreciate them. One of the most remarkable things Ferguson ever said about Robson was that he didn't need managing in the conventional sense. In an era long before managers constantly barked instructions from the technical area, Robson operated with a level of autonomy that no other captain Ferguson worked with ever enjoyed. On the pitch, Robson read the game in real time, adjusting positioning, tempo, and aggression without looking to the bench for approval. He understood when to slow things down, when to inject urgency, and when to drag the team forward by force of will alone. This ability wasn't taught. Ferguson described it as uncoachable, particularly Robson's timing. He had an uncanny sense of where the ball would land seconds before it arrived, allowing him to burst into the box just as defenders lost focus. Many of his goals weren't spectacular long-range strikes, but decisive, ruthless finishes born from instinct and anticipation. It's why he scored so consistently from midfield in an era where goals from that position were far less common. Ferguson believed Robson laid the foundation for Manchester United's future dominance. Even though much of his prime came before the Premier League era truly began, United didn't always have the best squad during Robson's early years, but they were never weak mentally. Robson ensured that he set the standard in training, in matches, and in how players carried themselves. Younger players learned quickly that effort was non-negotiable when he was around Paul. Gascoigne's perspective on Bryan Robson comes from a very different place, but it reaches the same conclusion. Where Ferguson admired leadership and structure, Gascoigne saw something almost mythical. To Godza, Robson wasn't just a great player, he was the ultimate footballer. Growing up, Gascoigne idolized him to the point of obsession. He watched him, studied him, and tried to model his own game on Robson's relentless energy and authority. Gascoigne has said on multiple occasions that Bryan Robson was the best player he ever saw, even ranking him above Pele and Maradona in terms of influence. That statement often surprises people, but when Godza explains it, the logic becomes clear. Pele and Maradona could change matches with moments of magic. Robson changed matches from the first whistle to the last. Everywhere on the pitch, in every phase of play, Gascoigne famously joked that Robson was everywhere, leading him to nickname him Dog Poo, because no matter where you turned he was there. It was humorous, but also revealing. Robson's presence was constant. He pressed, tackled, supported, arrived late in the box, dropped deep when needed, and still had the energy to do it all again minutes later. For younger players like Gascoigne, it was both inspiring and intimidating. Gotze once remarked that if he had even a bit of Bryan Robson inside him, he would have been untouchable. It was an admission that talent alone wasn't enough. Robson combined skill with discipline, intelligence, and an iron will. Where Gascoigne's brilliance sometimes drifted with emotion, Robson's intensity never wavered. He was relentless, in the purest sense. During their time together with the England national team, Robson took on a protective role with Gascoigne. Gotze has recalled how Robson would tell him not to worry about tackles or headers, instructing him to focus purely on playing his natural game. Robson would handle the physical battles, the confrontations, the ugly side of international football. It was leadership through responsibility, not words. That protection wasn't symbolic. Robson led by example, putting himself in harm's way repeatedly. Few players in football history have endured what he did physically and still returned it with the same level. 3 broken legs would have ended most careers, yet Robson came back each time with the same ferocity, the same fearlessness, and the same refusal to retreat into caution. Gascoigne's respect for that resilience borders on reverence. To him, Robson wasn't just a footballer who'd survived injuries. He was someone who'd refused to let adversity redefine him. Every comeback reinforced his authority in the dressing room. Teammates didn't just listen to him, they trusted him, because he had proven time and again that he would give everything. What separates Bryan Robson from many other great midfielders is that his leadership didn't rely on charisma or volume. He wasn't the loudest voice in the room. He didn't need to be. His authority came from consistency. When things went wrong, he didn't hide. When things went right, he didn't seek attention. That balance earned him respect across generations. Opponents often spoke of the psychological toll of playing against him. Even when United was struggling, Robson's presence made matches feel uncomfortable. He closed spaces, disrupted patterns, and turned momentum through sheer force of involvement. You could nullify one part of his game, but never all of it. In many ways, Robson represented a bridge between eras. He played with the grit of the old First Division and the intelligence of the modern game. He was physical without being reckless, creative without being indulgent, and disciplined without being rigid. That combination is incredibly rare, and it's why both a meticulous manager like Ferguson and a free spirit like Gascoigne saw the same greatness. As football evolved into a more commercial, media-driven spectacle, Robson's style became harder to replicate. Modern systems often compartmentalize roles, but Robson thrived on freedom and responsibility. He demanded accountability not through speeches, but through action. If a teammate faltered, Robson didn't complain, he compensated. Even decades later, his influence remains visible in the way midfield leaders are judged. Energy, intelligence, resilience, and authority are still the benchmarks, and Robson remains the reference point. When Ferguson spoke of building teams, he often spoke of mentality first, and Bryan Robson embodied that mentality better than anyone. Paul Gascoigne's admiration never faded, even as his own career took him to global stardom. Despite playing with legends and against icons, his definition of the perfect footballer never changed. Robson de Gotze was the blueprint, not because he was flawless, but because he was complete. Ultimately, Bryan Robson's greatness lies in the fact that he meant different things to different people, yet inspired the same conclusion. To managers, he was reliability. To teammates, protection. To opponents, a problem that never went away. And to young players watching from afar, he was proof that leadership isn't given, it's earned, minute by minute, tackle by tackle, run by run. In football history, there are many captains, many leaders, and many great midfielders, but very few combined all 3 roles as naturally and relentlessly as Bryan Robson. And when figures as different as Sir Alex Ferguson and Paul Gascoigne agree on someone's greatness, it's not opinion anymore, it's testimony. Robson's influence also went far beyond what cameras could capture on match day. Teammates often spoke about how his standards quietly rewired the dressing room. He didn't need speeches full of theatrics or public confrontations to lead. Instead, his authority came from consistency. Training sessions mattered to him as much as cup finals, and younger players quickly learned that if Robson was pushing himself to the limit on a cold Wednesday morning, there were no excuses left for anyone else. What made that leadership even more remarkable was the era he played in. English football in the late 70s and 80s was brutally physical, unforgiving, and tactically far less protected than the modern game. Midfielders were expected to fight first and think later. Robson somehow did both at once. He could win a crunching tackle, surge forward with the ball, and arrive in the box seconds later to score. That blend of intelligence and aggression is why so many former players struggle to find modern comparisons for him. There's also a quiet tragedy woven into Robson's story that deepens the respect figures like Ferguson and Gascoigne have for him. Injuries robbed him of peak years, including major international tournaments where he might have redefined England's footballing history. Yet even when his body betrayed him, his mindset never shifted. Each comeback wasn't treated as a bonus chapter, but as an obligation to the badge he wore. That refusal to accept decline is something Godza, in hindsight, often admits he wished he had learned earlier. For Ferguson, Robson represented the bridge between eras at Manchester United. Before the trophies, before the dominance, before the global brand, there was Robson setting the tone. He showed the club what elite mentality looked like before it became fashionable to talk about mentality. That's why Ferguson trusted him implicitly on the pitch. When Robson adjusted positioning or tempo mid-game, it wasn't defiance, it was shared vision. And perhaps that's the most powerful testament of all. When two of football's most emotional figures, one a relentless disciplinarian and the other a raw, chaotic genius, agree so completely on one player, it says something profound. Bryan Robson wasn't just admired for what he did with the ball. He was revered for what he demanded from everyone around him. In a sport obsessed with flair and statistics, Robson's legacy reminds us that greatness often begins with character, long before it shows up on the scoresheet.